Welcome to She Is His, a podcast from the Pretty and Wise Collective. Here, we are all about digging into God's Word and sharing real and honest, sometimes ridiculous, stories of faith and growing together in wisdom, grace, and courage. Think of this as your invitation to go grab a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and join in on the conversation. Together we'll laugh, we're going to learn, and we're going to lean into God's truth so that we can boldly walk as His daughters. New episodes are going to be dropping every other Friday, so don't forget to follow us on social media, or feel free to visit www.prettyandwise.com to stay connected. All right, ladies, let's dive in, let's grow in wisdom, and let's celebrate the beauty of sisterhood in Christ.
Hey, and welcome back to the She's His podcast. I'm Lyndsay Terry, and today we are talking about sunshine and discipleship. We're talking about the summer and how to make your summer really count, especially with your kids. And I asked Angie, Reese, and Gregory on our Pretty and Wise team to come and have this conversation with me because we all have kids at home this summer. And I'm excited about thinking about how to make this summer the best summer ever. That's always like my mentality going into summer is I want this to be the best summer ever. And I have high hopes. And so I'm trying to temper those a little bit, but I'm looking forward to this conversation with you guys. So tell me about how's your summer going so far?
Well, I just got back from a road trip to Wyoming. So my summer started off with a bang, going to see some family, great grandparents and great aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff like that we don't get to see except for once a year. So far, so good.
That's fun. And by just got back, you mean like 2 hours ago? You just
Yes. Like literally just got back.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here anyway. So
Hey, no problem.
what about you, Lori? How's your summer going?
Good. Already enjoying outside and swimming a lot. And so, yeah, I'll be happier when the temperatures go up just a little bit more. So the pool is just a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, we haven't even attempted the pool yet, even though my
Yeah.
kids are asking like every single day. Well, my husband and I kind of at the beginning of this summer, we kind of made, I don't know, we made a decision on how we wanted to handle summer with our kids. We decided we want to give our kids the kind of summer that we had as kids when we were growing up. And so we sat down the kids and we told them about what our summer looked like as kids. And they were like, oh, that's cool. And we're like, and that's what we want to give you guys this summer. So, there's lots that goes into that and we can kind of break that down. But for me, growing up, my summers were meant freedom. And they meant staying out until, the street lights came on. And they meant running all over the neighborhood with friends basically all day long and coming back to home base just when I was hungry. Um, and then disappearing again. And summer meant drinking out of the hose and spending late nights up with my family watching movies. And like summer was just one of my favorite seasons as a kid. What was summer like for you guys growing up?
Mine was very similar to yours. I grew up in San Antonio on Lackland Air Force Base. And so we had a very safe environment. It was the 80s, and, that means I'm old. And
The 1900s.
well, maybe not super old, but, it seems like a long time ago. But I ride my bike and roller skate and play. And like you said, you stay out till it's dark, and then you only come back to home base if you were thirsty and needed to drink out of the hose, or you wanted a popsicle, or you needed to eat something. But it was a lot of freedom, a lot of outside time.
Yeah. What about you, Lori? What was your summer like growing up?
Yeah, we were outside a lot. Well, I grew up in Florida, and so it was summer all the time. It really never not summer. So, as far as like the weather and the climate, I mean, we were always involved in some kind of water activity, whether it was the beach or a friend's pool or bike riding, long bike ride to the coast or whatever. And so, yeah, that's what I remember most about summer. It's just lots of time at the beach, lots of time at
Yeah.
school. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when my husband and I talked about this, we told our kids like we're not doing screens during the day because growing up we didn't sit and watch TV during summer. Like, we were with our friends, we were outside, we were exploring, we were playing in the woods, we were doing all kinds of stuff, but it wasn't sitting in front of a screen. And so we made the decision this summer, the only time we're doing screens is how it was when we were kids, family movie night. And so we've been trying to do, like, my husband's watching a movie with the kids right now, actually. And the other night, Monday night, my older boys and I stayed up and watched What About Bob? Because with Bill Murray from like the 80s, which they had never seen. But for me, that was like a childhood, maybe like, more their age, early teens, late elementary. But that was like one of my childhood memories of watching What About Bob in the summer. And so we stayed up late and watched it after the littler ones went to bed, and they thought it was hilarious. And don't judge me for letting my kids watch that movie. But anyway, so like, you haven't seen What About Bob? Please go watch it. Better yet, we should have a movie night and watch What About Bob? Okay. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it, but at your own discretion. I mean, there's some language, that's all. But anyway, it's hilarious. But that's how we, growing up, if we were going to watch something, it was all as a family. We would all sit down and watch a movie together, and that kind of thing. And so I've been like, every morning we get up and we eat, and then, okay, go outside, go play. And if you're inside, you're doing chores. Otherwise, you're off the hook if you go outside.
There you go.
So,
That's a way to inspire them to go
yeah,
outside.
it sure does. But it's been a really fun summer already, and we just have gotten started. But thinking about this podcast episode, and thinking about my own kids and our plans for this summer, which kind of, helped birth the idea of this episode, is I don't want summer to only be just 3 months of freedom and fun, but there's something really special about the summer where our priorities slow down. Like, there's not as much on the to-do list typically. My kids are with me more. Well, I homeschool, so they're with me all the time. But if you don't homeschool, your kids are home with you more. Or even if you do, you have more unstructured time with them. And so I feel like summer is a really great opportunity to lean into discipleship with your kids. Like, there's just so much more opportunity for that in really fun and memorable ways for them. And summer, while it feels like a break from everything, your discipleship with your kids doesn't have to take a vacation either. So why do you think summer can actually be? Because I think summer can actually be one of the best discipleship seasons for families. What's your take on that? Why do you think that is? Or do you disagree?
I think it's kind of like you said that, I homeschool also, and I have a lot of time with my kids during the year, but the focus changes, the rhythms change a little bit during the summer, and you're not as focused on academics as much. You might be, you have that kind of opportunity to conquer things in a short season that maybe you wouldn't have tried in a longer season. And so, especially where it can get crazy because you can think, well, it's such a short season. We want to do all these things and we can have all these expectations. But when you think about slowing it down, even more so, because that's what it affords. So you can go deeper. You can go deeper on these topics that maybe you weren't able to do during the regular year.
Yeah. What about you, Angie? What are you thinking about that?
I am moving into a season of homeschooling. So I am coming out of like the regular school year kind of thing. My husband and I both taught. And so, this is like, whew, everything slows down for us big time. And so I feel like having more time with the kids opens up opportunities for conversations that you may not have had.
Yeah.
Lori said, you have more time together. You can go deeper with things. So we normally have like a little 5-minute devotional time at the end of the evening, and then it's off to bed. Whereas now that it's summertime and we don't have to rush off to bed so quickly, we can kind of deepen that and really have discussions about what we're learning about in the Bible rather than reading a scripture, talking about a concept, going ahead and going to bed. And then I think that it just nature and, like you said, being outside more and being around, God's creation more opens up opportunities for conversations that you may not normally have had, uh, about just how great God's creation is. We just
Yeah.
finished, like, just came back from Wyoming, and the difference in the country from here to there opened up some conversations just traveling through that time, about how cool it is that when God made our country, he made different sections of it. Like there's different places where corn grows and different places where people raise cattle, and how he knew that we needed those different places in order to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love the idea about like when you're traveling with your kids, because a lot of us travel during the summer more than we do other parts of the year. One, like using that opportunity instead of just being focused on getting from point A to point B, like using that opportunity to notice God and have those kinds of conversations about the things you notice about God on your travels. Like for
Right.
me, we're going to the beach at some point this summer, and the beach is somewhere that I always it never fails. I can't go to the beach and not look at that ocean and think, I can't believe God made this and then decided to also make me because this is incredible. And then he still wanted to make me. He wasn't like, man, the ocean's enough. That's and
Yeah,
so
make you to enjoy it.
yes, yeah, yes. And so like there's so many good conversations instead of keeping those thoughts just in your head, have those conversations with your kids. Like, man, I'm sitting here, look at the ocean. Do you ever think how big God is? Because look how big that ocean is, and He made it. And it's like
Yeah.
a drop of water in His eyes, like mind blowing. You can be amazed by God with your kids. And summer's a great time to do that because you're seeing things you don't normally see. You're going places you don't normally go. You have more time together. Like, I think the thing I love most about summer is it gives us more presence with each other. You tend to have more time with your kids. You tend to have more time with your family. You tend to have more time with friends. You have cookouts and you have gatherings. Oh, we're going to all get together on July 4th, or we're going to go do this together. Our circle of friends in the summer, the past few years, we've done something called Monday Fun Day, where all of us parents who don't work on Mondays will get all of our kids together in the summer on Monday. And it's been so much fun. I've loved that we've done that for, I think, 3 years now. And I just think those are things I love about summer. And they just naturally lend itself to discipleship conversations, which, scripture talks about that. Deuteronomy 6 talks about talking to your children about the Lord when you sit at home and when you're walking along the road and when they lay down and when they get up. Like, make every opportunity to talk to your kids about the Lord. And so, like, thinking about talking to your kids about the Lord, what does that practically look like? I mean, when you hear the word discipleship, what do you imagine personally?
I think of a following. I think of us following Christ. And in order to follow Christ, we have to know what it is that he's saying and know what it is calling us to. And so I think that when I think about discipling my kids, I think about like basic Bible knowledge
Mhm.
to know, where it is to find things in the Bible. One of the things that I want to do with my girls this summer is they're going to be coming with me to work one day a week for the month of June, just to try to get them in the mindset of being there for homeschool and
Mhm.
trying to do some kind of like fun learning things. And one of the things that I want to do with them is I want them to memorize the books of the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily like what's in every book, but just the order of them so that
Yeah.
they can open up a Bible and know, oh, this is the New Testament, this is the Old Testament,
This is where I
Mark,
find
John, yeah.
Yeah.
Habakkuk or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
That later on in the school year, we can do memorization work and Bible reading and studies and things like that. And they'll know where it is to find those things in the Bible.
Yeah. I
Because
love that.
that as a kid, that was part of like VBS and things like that.
Yeah.
Growing
Yeah.
up. So, tying that into our summer so that later on discipleship on an even deeper level for them can happen. So, we can kind of make it a fun challenge during the summer to learn our books of the Bible.
Yeah.
But I think that basic Bible knowledge and learning to know what's in that Bible is what I think of when I think of discipleship one of the things that I think of for our kids.
Yeah. I like that too because, Like I was just at the library today with the kids and they signed up for the summer reading program and they wanted to do it. I wasn't even going to make them do it, even though, I wanted them to do it. But they were like, oh, yeah, because my kids love to read. And so they're like, yeah, I'll do a challenge so I can get prizes and whatever. And also, I'm going to read anyway. And so sometimes I think it's easy to be like, well, I don't want to force my kids when it comes to like spiritual stuff.
Mhm.
We want them to have this personal relationship with Jesus. And while that's good and we want them to definitely get there, we make our kids go to school. We make them, read during the summer. You're going to read books this summer, like because we make them do what's good for their development. And so I think like you said, turning it into kind of a challenge over the summer and making it like kind of more fun and less, I don't know, whatever the word is, that is a
Right.
really good way and you to disciple your kids over the summer. Make a challenge out of it, make it fun. And but don't slack on helping your kids grow in their biblical knowledge, in their spiritual life. Like they're not going to do it on their own because
Mm.
we're all sinful human nature we all have and it's
Yeah.
so that we fight against. So they're not going to do it on their own. And it's our job as parents to kind of help shuffle that along. So I like the idea of doing like a summer challenge of like memorizing the books of the Bible. That's cool.
Yeah. I think it's too like when you think about, I think of Jesus's disciples and how they were literally following him in everything he was doing, and they were there with him in everything he was doing. And then he's talking and sharing his perspective and teaching them a worldview in a sense. Like he's teaching them how to look at the world from God's eyes, but he's serving at the same time and they're doing all the things together. And so it's like a kind of like an integration, of not just the knowledge is so important, but then just how does it apply in their life and how does it look? And even, as simple as like I have a 3-year-old and she's in this why stage all the time. Like, why? What? Why? And I mean, I think she just likes to hear the word why, like, because she'll just ask it 9 million times a day.
Yeah.
But, like one day, why is it raining today? And I said, "Well, because God decided that today was a good day for rain, and it is a good day for rain because 'cause we've been in a drought, and have you noticed how the grass is, like, turning brown?" And so, it just shows us, that God gives us what we need when we need it, and, He's always sustaining us, and so it was just kind of like a chance. She doesn't understand sustaining, so but it was more for my older daughter probably, but
Yeah.
it's more of like, just a chance to I don't know, just to talk about kind of like what Angie said that, you're out in nature and you're just discovering things and how is it working, in their lives, or if it's something about, just like making it more tangible and
Yeah.
less abstract for them where they are, where is a 9-year-old, where is a 3-year-old, and what are they doing and how does it apply to them? And so that's what I feel like it looks like for us in this season.
Yeah. I love that too because it makes God real and present. I mean, he is real and present, but it makes real the reality that God is real and present with us and cares about things even like our grass and, taking care of us. I think that's such a good, easy way for kids to see God in his provision and understand it in a really basic way that like God meets our needs. Even the fact that it's raining outside and that's a need we have. Like, I think that's great to just notice what God is doing and point it out to our kids, or when they notice something that you can use as like a roadmap to point out the Lord. That's so great. And talking about, disciples in the time of Christ and how that look, you did everything with your rabbi. Like you followed him, you ate with him, you like live and breathe in every movement he makes, And so I'm thinking about our children are our disciples as we are disciples of Christ, like follow me as I follow Christ. And so am I noticing the presence of God in my life as I'm following Christ? Like, not just a list of do's and don'ts, but am I like living and moving and having my being in Him the way that disciples in Christ's time did with their rabbi, so that my kids then will see, like, I don't know. I think there's something about being a really good noticer of
Mm.
God.
I think that's to me, and when we talk about summertime discipleship with kids, I think that's the key right there is you have to be a good noticer so that you can then point out to your kids. And it's funny because I feel like if we do that consistently, then the kids will then in turn start pointing things out to us
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
that they
Yes.
and I that is when you can be like, this discipleship thing is really working
Yeah.
when
And
they take the lead on it and they can start pointing things out to you.
yeah. And then that just kind of shows us, like, that reassures you they are developing a personal attachment to Jesus when
Exactly.
they're noticing now too. When they can see God in the character of God in His creation, when they can see God at work around them, like, it's moving from just, in your head to down in your heart. So, yeah, I love that. And I think we can overcomplicate discipleship sometimes. I love a good program. You guys know me. I love a good plan, which is hilarious because I'm very personally, I by nature am not a planner. I'm a let's just decide and do it in the moment. I'm very, fly by the seat of my pants by nature, but I've grown to love a great plan. Um, and so sometimes I can plan things to death where it's like, calm down. And so I think we can overcomplicate discipleship with our kids sometimes because we have like a picture in our mind of, how I'm going to teach them. But I think it's less about, like, of course, we want to teach our kids about Jesus, but we want to teach them to follow Jesus. So, what do you guys think? We talked about noticing. We talked about like some fun summer challenges to help them gain like biblical knowledge. What are some other simple things families can do to help disciple their kids throughout the summer? Do you have any other good practical ideas?
I heard this once on a podcast. This is not my idea, but I thought it was simple enough to do, although I can't say it's been implemented perfectly. But it was called discipleship and dessert. Like 2 or 3 days a week, you get, some kind of cool dessert that the kids get into. And then you choose a devotional or you choose a scripture. I had a book that I was using that was focusing on the character of God and different attributes throughout the Bible. And so anyways, of course there was days when we tried it and it was like chaos, like every behavior problem that could happen happened at that moment.
Yeah.
But what I liked about it was, and the moments that it was a little sweeter, was that it was just a simple way and it to just introduce it, to just like, hey, this is doesn't have to take like an hour. It can take a few minutes while we're eating some ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think it can be frustrating because when those moments happen, you're like, why am I even doing this? I mean, there were even times when my husband was like, we got to cut this. Like we like
This is not working.
we're becoming very un-Jesus like in this moment. So, but I still think just doing it, hearing it, planting a seed, I still think it has value.
Yeah.
Um, and it's simple enough to implement.
I love that idea. And it also makes it something they can look forward to because there's dessert attached to it.
Sugar
So,
them up and teach them about Jesus.
turn them up and teach them about Jesus, but you have a 5-minute window before chaos for all dessert. Yeah. I love that. What about you, Angie? Any other practical, simple things you think families can do?
I mentioned earlier about doing our devotionals each evening, and I think that goes along with what Lori was talking about. Just after showers and everybody's cleaned up and everything, and you're kind of starting to wind down for the evening, having a discussion, age appropriate discussion about the Bible. And we have several different books that we work through. Like, we'll repeat them because I think that those concepts are good, but I have like a Louis Giglio book that we work through. We have one that's about the names of Jesus, which I really love. And we have one that's just a 5-minute devotionals for families. And and it just goes through the whole, lots of parts of the Bible from beginning to end, talking about different concepts. And I think making it a summertime routine is a really good idea. And like Lori said, sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes the kids are not paying attention. They're either overtired or overstimulated, and they're just not having it.
Yeah.
But the effort. And I think that it becomes an expectation in our family that we're going to sit down and do that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I love that. I've talked before about bedtime's chaos in our house because I have 4 kids and they go to bed at different times. Not all of them, but like the toddler, he's still the baby, but the toddler goes to bed at a different time than my teenage son, and my teenage son goes to bed at different goes to bed. Wow, English, at a different time than my 2 middle kids. And so and sometimes my husband, he works an hour away from home, and sometimes if he's stuck at work late, then we're eating super late, and then it's just like chaos to get everybody ready into bed. So in this era of our family life, bedtime devotionals would be a challenge for us, but we do kind of a similar thing in that we do try and do a family dinner every night that we don't have an evening event at the church or something. And we always try and have really intentional conversation with the kids over dinner. And so we usually do like, what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? And then from those moments where they're talking about their day and they're sharing like things to celebrate and they're sharing things that maybe were hard for them, those 2 simple questions, we call it your high and your low, birth opportunities galore to bring the Lord into the conversation.
Absolutely.
And so like for us, that's kind of what we've been doing in this season that's been working well for my kids. I've talked before about doing an afternoon tea time. My kids and I like to do that during the school year. And then I'll have like a question that I bring to the table. So it takes a little bit of, not a lot at all, but really like, 5 or 10 minutes of thought, to what do we want to talk about today? And that question is intended to guide them into how God interacts in their life. God is not just this, far away person who made the world and is kind of involved in our life, but we really just keep him on our Sunday, you know, little box, and the rest of the week is ours. But like, no, God is intimately involved in every part of your life. He cares about every part of your life. And so those kind of trying to think about questions that will help my kids see that God cares about all these different parts of our life and our world. So those are a couple things that we do too. But I love if you've got a solid bedtime routine. I love that. I feel like maybe once the school year starts, that'll be easier. For
Yeah.
us too.
Well,
But
another
I love that.
asked was taking popsicle sticks and giving the kids popsicle sticks and having them write down somebody or something they want to pray for on it. You could do that anytime. You could do that at dinner time. You could do that at breakfast time. You could do that during the middle of the day on a break. And everybody picks a popsicle stick and you pray about what it is that's on that popsicle stick. And it's amazing how insightful kids are and how many things they can come up with to pray about. And it helps them to think outside themselves, helps them develop that prayer life with God and really talking to God about what's going on in life and how important that is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I love that because like I think sometimes we can work really hard personally on developing, a good theology and a good service side of our relationship with God and neglect the very personal conversation that God wants to have with us regularly. So training your kids to talk to God for themselves, but also for the people around them, I think is awesome. And that's like a fun, sweet way to do it. And it's summer, you're going to have 9 million popsicle sticks in your house. So
Exactly.
I love that.
yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I think just keeping in mind like discipleship is less about, creating a curriculum and more about inviting your kids into relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
What does it look like to walk with Jesus? And let me invite you into that. So I'm going to talk to you about my relationship with Jesus. I'm going to talk to you about the things I'm noticing about God right now, and I'm going to help train you in some of these practices of being with God, like through prayer and through Bible study and through, conversation about God. Like it should be really normal to talk about God and the things of God. And so I think those are all great ideas. I'm going to start implementing some of those. I like the popsicle stick idea too a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So have my kids and I always kind of come up with like a kind of a bucket list for the summer of things before the summer ends. We want to do these things. We haven't finished ours yet. We usually do it kind of at the beginning of the summer. The beach is always on there for my people. And,
Right.
usually some kind of trip is on there for people. And the pool is always on there. I have water babies. But do you do that with your kids? Have like a little summer bucket list? And have you ever thought about putting some spiritual goals on your summer family bucket list?
No, I have not
Yeah.
actually.
I hadn't either
Yeah.
until now.
That's a great
Do you guys do a summer bucket list?
I mean, at the beginning of the summer, I kind of ask her simply, like, ask them, what do you want to do the most this summer? And I'll ask them kind of a brief question of what they want to focus on the most. But it's usually simple, like, as he said, like ice cream and swimming. And I was like, well, we can do that.
Perfect
We
summer.
got
Yeah.
it. So thankfully, they're not real grandiose with their expectations, which I really love right now because I
Yeah.
can meet them.
Yeah.
But
we on this trip that we just went on, we drove out to Wyoming, so we had lots of time in the car. And when I wasn't sleeping, because Robbie does most of the driving, when I wasn't sleeping, we were discussing, the upcoming school year and what we want that to look like. Like I said, we're moving into a homeschooling season, but also we talked about what kind of things we wanted to do this summer. Did we want to camp at all? Did we want to go on any day trips, different places? And so Robbie and I made a list of things that we wanted to do, but I didn't think about putting spiritual things on there, which is kind of sad to admit. I didn't think about that, but
I didn't either, but it just occurred to me like we do a summer bucket list. And I mean, it's kind of informal, but we always put together kind of our little list of what we want to do. What a perfect thing to do is add some spiritual goals as a family.
yeah.
We actually do that at the beginning of every homeschool year, like every school year. We started about, I don't know, 5 years ago doing this because I think it was when we first started homeschooling. So maybe 6 years now. But anyway, where we map out our goals. Each of my kids kind of make some goals for themselves at the beginning of the school year of different areas of their life they want to grow in. Educationally, these are my goals, and spiritually, these are my goals, and relationally, these are my goals. And like for my personal growth, these are my goals. And it's kind of fun to see because they're such different ages, how different those goals are. But I'm like, well, we do it during the school year, like summer. We're talking about summer discipleship and trying to be more intentional. We should add some spiritual goals to our little summer bucket list. Like by the end of the summer, like for your kids, like I want to have all the books of the Bible memorized. That's a
Right.
really cool goal.
Yeah.
So I want to read all of Genesis, or I want to be able to say, I prayed every day, or I read my Bible every day this summer, or whatever their goal is. I think that's a cool thing that you can even just bring up with your kids and just see what's important to them spiritually, even without suggesting anything. Just kind of see what comes out, where they're at.
Yeah.
And that
You
can
just
be
get
fun.
good practical ones if they need a little guidance.
For
Yeah.
sure, for sure. Because they might be like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
my kids,
Depending on their age, like, "What
yeah.
do you mean?" Well, one of the things my husband and I talked about doing this summer is once we get back from our vacation we're about to go on, because it's been kind of chaos leading up to our big family vacation at the end of June. But one of the things we want to do is on our Saturdays, my husband's been calling Saturdays Dadder days because he's like, this is the day that like I'm home with the kids and the fam. I'm not at work. We're going to do some cool stuff I want to do, and which is cool. And actually, a lot of it's just been projects around the property. But one of the things we talk about is we want to start doing some fun hikes around that are drivable distance in, Virginia with the kids over the summer. And so thinking about that, I know he also wants to take the boys on like a campooing trip or something where they camp and canoe or kayak, whatever they do down the river for a couple days. I think that'll be fun. They don't know about that yet. So, but I think that's a really good opportunity if you guys are campers, you're out in nature a lot, stargazing is a cool opportunity to talk about God.
Yeah.
Just laying a blanket outside and putting lots of bug spray on, and if you can get somewhere dark, that's really fun. My kids and I sometimes like to do that in the summer. But that's a really I feel like there's something about that bedtime, time where it's gotten dark and everybody's kind of quiet and settled, where my kids open up and are ready to talk more deeply about things. And so that's a great time to go stargazing. And that's like a really great opportunity. They're emotionally more available for those kinds of conversations. And also, you're like just surrounded by God's beauty and like the wow factor of the universe.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
conversations.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like serving over the summer? Just like that's a part of discipleship. What do you guys do? Do you guys do anything special as a family over the summer to like that you don't normally do during the year in terms of like serving other people or in the community or
Well, I've done different things, and
Mhm.
like we have certain ministries at the church that I had Isabel helping with me at one time, and
Yeah.
different things. But I did see this from a homeschool group recently. It's not my idea, like I said, but it was called Meetups with a Mission.
Okay.
So they kind of and they put it out there on Facebook, basically anybody that wants to get together and like do this food bank this day, and we're going to meet at this time, and then kind of way of pulling kids into that. And like I said, they put it out there to everyone. I thought that was a great idea. I was like, I didn't think of it, and I didn't think to plan it, but I might just take Isabel to that and just,
That's
eh,
cool.
kind of just introducing her to that. But yeah, I thought that was a simple way to do it. Or just like, we have a new ministry at our church, the closet or the right. And so, they were talking about cleaning out your closet and like, oh, what can we go into our closet and like start cleaning out? I mean, we can do it,
Yes.
So I think those simple ways are what I think of this summer at least.
I
Yeah.
was clothing closet too with my kid and going through clothes. You're coming into summertime, you got the new summer wardrobe. What clothes have you outgrown? What can we pull out of our drawers that was winter clothes that we can donate, or clothes that we saved that now you really are too big for, and give those to the clothing closet. We are transitioning to a new storage building here on the property, trying to cull stuff from the house. So getting rid of toys and donating those that they've outgrown and don't play with anymore and things like that. That's one of the things that we're going to be doing this summer. I know that during the school year it's a little easier because we have like the Backpacks of Love program and the kids can go help with packing bags for the Backpacks of Love program. I would love to see our the middle school kids get involved in doing some yard mowing or yard work for some of our
Yeah.
elder people.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's one, our that was our like family summer serve project is cleaning out all of our closets. And I already told my kids, I was like, this new ministry at our church is starting where we're getting, they're taking clothing donations of things that are in good shape to help provide free clothes for families who just can't afford to buy anything right now. And they've got events this summer. And so like we have so many clothes. So we've been like doing, a marathon of like laundry and going through the backs of closets and trying to get all of our stuff to donate, and the kids are kind of excited about that idea of someone else getting good use out of that, and like, oh, and it's going to be free for them, they don't even have to buy it, and that's kind of cool. That's been it's We've been able to even like have conversations about, yeah, in Acts 2 it talks about like the church, they brought all their stuff together and nobody within the church community had any needs because they all met each other's needs by just like, freely offering things to each other. We didn't cling so tightly to our stuff. Like, this is my stuff. And like, this is a way that we can live that Acts 2 church kind of mentality of, like, I don't need this, even if it still fits. Do I need it? Like, do I need this many shirts? Do I need this many pairs
Right.
of pants? If I don't, I will feel better having less stuff. Somebody else will feel better having something. And so even just something like that has been, but you could even like if you don't have a church, ministry like that, but you're just donating to Goodwill, those are still conversations you can have with your kids about helping provide for someone else. And anyway, so
Another thing we do is we do a neighborhood cleanup where Robbie will take the kids, we have a wagon and we'll put like one trash can on there for trash, one trash can for recycling, and one trash can for metal things that we find. And we'll just walk down our street and pick up trash for the neighborhood because for some reason, being out in the country, people think they need to dump everything out here.
yeah.
And so we'll do that. And we'll do that probably 3 or 4 times a year. But one of the times that we do it is during the summertime.
Oh, that's cool. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
What I do.
So thinking about summer, and sometimes it can be a little messy. Sometimes things that don't seem like they're very big issues during the school year kind of crop up in the summer. I'm thinking of a couple right now, but what kind of challenges tend to show up in your kids during the summer? Maybe they're spiritual, maybe not, necessarily spiritual, but what do your kids have any challenges over the summer that they don't have the other times of the year?
I think they struggle with the "I'm bored" bug.
Mhm.
And so having those little projects, kind of in your back pocket and unplugging yourself from what it is, the project that maybe you got your mind set on, and focusing on getting the kids involved in something is difficult, but worthwhile.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I agree with you from back at the beginning of our conversation about not having as much screen time during the summer because it's easy when you're busy trying to do something to be like, here's a screen.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Trying to avoid that, you've got to have a plan. It does not come naturally these days for kids to want to go outside and play
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
explore. So maybe having a box of stuff like gardening tools that are their size, and be like, you know what, here's your section of the garden, you can dig and plant and do whatever you want to.
Love
Or
that idea. Yeah.
Robbie has the shop and he has lots of scrap wood, so here's a hammer and nails and some scrap wood, what can you build? Having some spare canvases and acrylic paints around or watercolor paints around, and allowing them to do that because it does get hot and it is hard to play outside all the time.
Exactly.
So having
Yeah.
those
Really a rainy
little
day.
projects. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those little projects kind of in your back pocket that you can pull out when they're bored and you don't have a good chore for them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I think some of the challenges we face in the summer is because there is less structure and we are looser with bedtime. If we get too loose with bedtime, then people's, attitudes start to just implode during the day if they're not getting enough sleep. Or by the time we get back to the school year and we need a little more structure back in our life, then we're, fighting that struggle of getting back into routine. So, and I think thinking about particularly my kids' attitudes, I don't separate that from like their spiritual life at all because everything is under the Lord. And so if I have a junky attitude, and I'm, hollering and screaming at my sister because she took my marker, I don't know, whatever my kids in a fight about, that you're just like, why are we this? So sometimes I think there's practical things I can do to help my kids be able to have better self control, which helps their spiritual life, right? And so I think one, you're right, Angie, is like having kind of like a fallback of things that they can do, like a busy bucket or something, depending on their age. If it's rainy or they're like, I've been outside all day, it's 98 degrees, yeah, having some things for them to do because while boredom is so good for their brain, it also does produce an opportunity for strife.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a balance there somewhere. And same with not getting enough sleep or having absolutely no structure can be a recipe for, you know, relational issues with your kids and things like that. So, how do you balance structure and freedom in the summer?
I think in a way, there's some things you need to be firmer about in the summer. And I mean that not in lieu of freedom, like as a way to give them the freedom that the summer promises, the wonder and everything like that, but giving them real firm expectations of what
Yeah.
is going to happen and what's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think like the screens are one that, y'all have been talking about, and not letting that go just because they have more time on their hands. If, in the school year you decided, well, hey, after a certain time you're allowed, like for us in the school year, we want them to play outside as much as possible, even in the school year.
Yeah.
If they're not, doing something we need them to do, we want them to be outside as much as possible. So, it's basically like they don't get screen time until they come in for the night because, and they've done what they need to do.
Yeah.
Um, and, so I don't change that in the summer just because, they don't have something in the morning. They don't all of a sudden get, 2 hours of stream time just because they have the time. So that's, like, one thing. I think eating is important, right, too? Like, the summer, it's fun to eat all the sweet stuff, but, that piles on, after a few days of doing that with
Yeah.
attitudes and attention spans and all the things. Um, I think, like, I like kind of having a rhythm based on the weather. It's really hot later in the day. I have a 3-year-old, so she still rests in the afternoon. So maybe we go outside early, or they go outside early, and then if I wanna work on them with something together, I do it in the afternoon when it's rest time for my 3-year-old,
Yeah.
that kinda thing. So where maybe in the school year, I'd be like, "Oh, well, I wanna get schoolwork done from the early morning hours, and then we can play for the rest of the day." Maybe that's different in the summer. Maybe we're playing in the morning, we're coming back and doing something because we still do a little school in
Mhm.
the summer, just things that, we're wanting them to not lose
Yeah.
as far as knowledge goes. So yeah, I think it's good to have like a loose rhythm, something,
Yeah.
even like a goal, like, oh, if we're reading books, right? Well, maybe this is library day today um, or, whatever it is.
Yeah, I like that, and it kind of brings me back to something that we've been trying to instill in our kids for the past year is, like, freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want, or it's not the right to do whatever you want, it's the right to do what is right.
Mhm.
That's what real freedom is, and so, like, taking that mentality and applying it to our summer schedule
Yeah.
of, like, it's not just giving them free rein to do whatever they want all summer long, and maybe there's less routine, but there's definitely a rhythm, I think is great, and I think kinda basing it around the weather is helpful for sure, but I do think balancing that structure in that kind of totally unstructured playtime, having a kinda set-ish rhythm during your summer is really helpful for that. That's what we're trying to find right now. I have a
Yeah.
2-year-old who doesn't want a nap, but desperately needs one every day, and we all pay for it if he doesn't, and so our
Yes.
rhythm this summer has been trying to, after lunch, having a 1 to 2 hour, we call it rest time, so it's the time we try and get Daniel to nap, and the older kids, you don't have to be outside, you can be if you want, but if you're inside, you're quiet, and you can do something quietly, you can color, you can paint, you can read a book, you can play Legos, like, in your room, but it's kind of a low key part of our day, and so we're trying to build our summer rhythm kind of around that. And that's helpful for everyone having that kind of more quiet, slower portion of the day. And I think it's helpful for their internal atmosphere. It's helpful for their attitudes to be able to
Yeah.
slow down for a portion of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that that creates a lot more peace in the home. And when there's more peace in the home, it's easier to have these conversations that we're all striving to have with our kids about the Lord. And although there's lots of opportunity when there's not peace, they may be struggling to listen.
Yeah.
So what encouragement would you have for a mom who feels like she's got kids who are struggling to listen when it comes to spiritual conversations or spiritually minded activities? Maybe their kids are just kind of disinterested in that. What kind of encouragement would you give that mom?
I would tell her not to give up. I would tell her to just press on because they're listening and hearing more than you give the credit for.
Oh, yeah.
Roll their eyes and be like, "Whatever, mom," especially if they're older,
Mhm.
but they're still hearing it, and I think it's important for you to try to be really intentional about continuing to have those conversations, even if they seem to bounce off the wall.
Yeah, I think mine would be along with that is that lose your expectations of what you think it should look like. It can be simple and it can be kind of like Angie said, keep the long term in mind. So even if, you talk about something and there's total disinterest, well, you really don't know what's going on mentally or, or what's going to go on long term. So to just keep doing it, keep
Yeah.
initiating it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree that they're getting more than you think they are. Even in those like bedtime Bible studies or dessert and discipleship things you guys have talked about, where sometimes the kids are like totally checked out and it's chaos, they're still getting something from that. Even just even if they're not like retaining a whole lot of what you're saying, but they're seeing, oh, this is important to my family.
Mhm.
Like God is important to my family, and that being instilled in them is really important. So even if that's all they're getting in that moment, it's still worthwhile. Yeah, I would say if you feel like your kids aren't interested in having spiritual conversations, start a conversation about them and what's going on in their life and what they care about, because everybody's interested in talking about themselves, especially when they're young and they're not jaded yet or anything by the world. So yeah, they're more interested in talking about themselves. And if you want kind of change in your pocket to be able to have those conversations where you kind of earn the right to have some of those conversations with your kids, caring a lot about, even the conversations about what their favorite Pokemon is and, you know,
What
their
they built Minecraft.
thank you. That's exactly what I say. Well, this cool thing they built in Minecraft that you're like caring about those things shows that you just care about them. And then, you know, I think starting the conversation there's going to be opportunity to born out of that to talk about the Lord in their life. So, yeah, what do you, looking back years from now, looking back to this summer or the summer, where your children are children and not adults, what do you hope your children remember about summers in your family?
I hope they remember me being present,
Mhm.
and I hope they remember the I hope they remember that unplugged playtime
Yeah.
they had, because when I think about my childhood, that's what I remember is that unplugged. I don't remember the TV shows that I watched during the summer.
Nope.
I friends and, and being outside. And I want them to remember playing outside and having little adventures and doing projects and things like that. But I also want them to remember that I was there with them doing it,
Yes.
because I don't remember my parents being around. And I know it was a different time and my dad was working. So it wasn't that he didn't want to be there. Like I remember him coming home from work and he was in the military and we'd be playing in the pool out back and he would go for a run after work and he'd come back from his run and he'd come and just like sit in our pool and we just thought it was so funny and we'd dump water on him and all that kind of stuff. And I remember my mom making special treats for us to come in, when we were done playing. And so I want my kids to have memories like that of me,
Yeah.
the times that we had as families, not necessarily like the super structured times, but just the fun
Yeah.
and that they were loved.
Yeah. What about you, Lori? What do you hope your kids remember about their summers growing up?
Yeah, I think similar. I wanted them to remember me getting in the pool with them and, just the time we have together. I want them to remember, going out, going get Jimmers for ice cream, when
Yeah.
it's late, and just hanging out and that we enjoy each other.
Yep.
That we enjoy each other. But we're not just in a family that have to spend time together, but that we choose each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm totally in the same vein. I want my kids to look back and be like, man, our summers were always filled with wonder and just like, fun. And mom was there for all of it. Like, or mom, helped make that happen for us. Like, I don't want them, I want them to have fun memories, with their friends and even just with just their little sibling group. But I also want them to remember, the times we stayed up late and were talking on the couch and eating ice cream at 11 o'clock. I want them to remember when we went to the, like you said, I'm in the pool with them and playing with them. And I want them to remember, conversations around the dinner table. And I want them to remember, that we really love Jesus together as a family. Like, Jesus is really a part of who we are. Like, that's part of the Terry identity is
Mhm.
Jesus. And it didn't stop in the summer because routine stopped. So, what is something that your kids have learned, do you think, just by watching you follow Jesus?
Wow.
I think this is kind of humbling, but I think they learn that mom messes up, you
Mhm.
know?
To say the same thing, Lori.
Well, honestly, that's I think the best thing because I think it's the gospel in action. I screw up and I have to say I'm sorry and would you forgive me? And we teach, you teach them about forgiveness and you don't hide that from them like you don't try to be the perfect parent. You show that that you're just you mess up and you ask for forgiveness and you each other you're working through that as a family and I think it's a great picture of how we are with other believers, how we are with Christ and how Christ forgives us and how and to practice that in a very practical way. So
Well, in order to not say the same thing that Lori said, I will add to that I want my kids to remember, uh, and to me taking those struggles to God, and teaching them to take their struggles to God as well. Recently, my youngest has been struggling with her attitude, and she's getting so close to understanding that she's a sinner and needs Christ. And so the other day she said, I just don't know what to do. And I said, well, have you thought about praying? And she said, Mom, will you pray for me? And that was such a precious moment that she recognized that that was something that we do. Having that time of prayer with her, a few days later when we were having our family devotional, she said, can we pray for me again? Because I'm still struggling with this. So
Mhm.
to
Mm.
to have them see me as someone who takes those struggles to God and has that relationship with God, I want them to have the same thing.
Yeah, I love
Love
that.
that. Mhm.
I think something my kids, some of them have learned by watching me follow Jesus is, I guess, just like faith, like believing God's going to come through, even when you're facing big, scary things. Like, God's been faithful every time. Why would I worry? And I think some of that has come from, you know, last year and the year before, where like we had some really big challenges in the year, particularly like financially and just some other things going on in our family life that were just really big challenges and things that like we couldn't totally keep our kids in the dark about. And so we talked about it openly as a family about like, yep, this is hard and don't know, like, we don't see a path forward or an answer on this, but like, God has provided for us every step of the way up to this point. Like, it doesn't even make sense to think that He won't provide for the next step. He would have to like deny himself, like this is just who he is. He takes
Mhm.
care of us. And so we're just gonna trust God and move forward and be faithful and believe God loves us and God is going to take care of us. And then my kids got to see all those prayers of those different things that we were facing answered again and again and again and again. And like, oh, wow, God really does take care of us. And like, yeah, mom and dad were really, big questions about this, but they were at the dinner table having conversations with us and then saying, but God has before, and we're going to tell you about times God was faithful to us so that like we're not just spouting off something, like we've seen God's faithfulness and
Mhm.
so we're
Mhm.
going to see it again. And so I think my kids have learned like just trust in the faithfulness of God from my husband and I just kind of very candidly living our faith and struggles in front of the Lord. My 2-year-old's at the door yelling, "May I come in?" Anyway, so I'm guessing Daddy fell asleep on the couch. So we'll wrap this up. But all right, what's one thing you're hoping to do with your kids this summer? Just lightning round, quick questions.
One thing I'm hoping to do with them this summer is hoping to take them to see Blu-ray Caverns because I don't think they've.
Fun.
So I think that's one thing I want to do with them.
Love it. Lori, what's one thing you want to do with your kids this summer?
I was going to say go hiking in Shenandoah, so it's kind of similar, but lots of beach, lots of ice cream and swimming. That's what I got.
There you go.
I think beach. I want to go to the beach with my kids, which it's planned, but that's one of my favorite things to do with my kids. All right, one thing you're saying no to this summer.
I think we all agree that it's screens.
Screens.
Yes.
No to screens, yes. Also, no to bad attitudes.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have a great summer. What's one spiritual habit you'd like your family to grow in this summer?
Reading their Bible.
Yes, I want to take that one too.
Yeah. Me too. That's ours too. Okay, and one encouragement for the moms who are listening.
None of us is perfect. Just keep doing your best, Mama.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Don't think it has to look a certain way. Do one thing in front of you right now.
Yeah, that's the best advice, I think, is just do the thing in front of you when you're overwhelmed. An encouragement for mom listening. Yeah, I think just enjoy it. Have fun. Have fun with your kids.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. And you can have fun talking about spiritual things. You can have fun pointing out Jesus. You can have fun eating the 12th popsicle for the day. You can have fun doing all the things. You can have fun with your kids. And I think just make this summer a summer of joy and let your kids see the joy of Jesus in you. I think that's kind of important. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I've loved this conversation, but now I've got kids I got to go be with. So,
Okay.
But I love you guys, and this has been a great conversation. I hope that you are encouraged by this conversation. I hope it gave you some good practical ideas, and I hope that you just have a great summer with your kids. You can follow along with everything Pretty and Wise is doing at prettyandwise.com or any of our social medias. You can follow this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And in 2 weeks, we got another episode coming out. So we will see you then on the She Is His podcast. Thanks for tuning in.